So it's Friday, the 3rd of December, 2021, and we've managed a whole week of GEC meetings and conversations. So I am, first of all, immensely grateful that you've stuck with us all week, and thank you for attending this final session. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through what we're going to do. This is a check-in, introduction, say hi to people, who's in the room. So I'll do a little bit of that, but also we'll have a little bit of a debrief of what we've heard this week in plenary as much as we can. Just a quick refresh of our strategy and our theories of change, and then some breakout carousels. Now, we are going to keep working you, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to do 2 rounds of these. There are 4 different breakouts. The first is about Advocacy Story. So really, if you're a comms person or you're a policy person that wants to intervene in particular spaces and wants to work out how we do it together, then that's the breakout for you. If you want to get deep into the policy creation, the thinking about our structure, then that's also going to be the space for you. Hubs, the structure underpinning us, our structure and governance, we probably should have changed that. It's our structure and governance. How do we raise money? How do we structure ourselves so we are a learning organization that collaborates effectively and shares decision-making and shares ownership of this coalition? We have got a special session for those of you who have not currently members of the GEC, actually a new members group where you can go and have a little bit of an experiment and understanding about what it means to be a member. And you'll hear from 1 or 2 members about their experiences as well. So that's going to be the first round. We are going to then close the new members one, as we would then like to encourage everybody to go to one of those 3, the advocacy, the policy, and the hubs meeting. So if you went to advocacy first time round, then you would go to the policy one the second time round, or the hubs the second time round. Your choice is there, but you will miss out on one of them. So you'll have to make your selected choice. We didn't think you would want to do 3 rounds of a carousel. Then a little bit of plenary feedback and next steps. So that's the agenda, but yeah, let's just close the slides for a second, Ben, and just look at everyone's faces for a second, if we possibly can. Ladies and gentlemen, it is somewhat of a difficult year, isn't it, for all of us? Very difficult in many ways, and COVID has struck us and our work and our outreach and our ability to connect and discuss. And we had to make a decision at the GEC. Should we forsake the global meeting and because so much of it is about today, about the networking, about the relationships that underpin of our outstanding work together. But we decided that we could not miss another year, and we needed to connect. And we're very grateful. We've tried to do it on Zoom with all of its strengths and weaknesses. We know that you've all been zoomed out. And we've all spent far too long talking to boxes, and forgetting that we're 3-dimensional people with lives and other things going on. And so much of the richness that we get from our experiences and sitting and having a coffee or having a lunch, and that underpins all of our relationships and our collaborations, we can't do those on Zoom as much as we would like. But we've done our best. And it is one of the points that always struck me is the real value of our coalition is actually the work we do together. The work we do, the relationships that underpin us. And this strategy day or this coalition day, in some ways, should be number 1, should be the first day, it is the most important day in many ways, because all the rest is sort of collaboration impact. But this is about the strength of our network, the strength of our relationships, the strength of listening to each other and understanding each other and empathizing and learning together and acting together. So, and I'm very grateful, therefore, that you've joined us and continue to stay with us throughout this whole week. Okay, so let's just have a little bit of a think about the week. Ben, if we could put that slide up again of the week agenda, that would be helpful, so that I can just kind of recap a little bit about where we've been. Yeah, that one there. Yeah. Okay, so day 1. Really that sense of setting the big picture. What's the context for our current work? Clearly it's COVID. And clearly we are working on this longer term transition of economic reform, but now is the COVID moment. And now is the moment that we are talking about how do we respond to this moment, and how do we support the acceleration of our agenda into this moment and into the policymaking space. The fact that policymakers are listening to scientists more than they've ever done before is surely an opportunity for us to start to convince them that the climate, ecological, and inequality crises that we know exist are not long-term things, they're short-term things, and they coincide with many of the challenges that we're currently facing with COVID. And that the best solutions are both COVID-proof and also future-proof on green economy, inclusive and fair. So really that sense of that moment was when we were there together on Monday, and it forms itself into our declaration for the week. One of the two things that comes out of this week is the declaration, a statement that we make together. And we have worked on that throughout this week and captured it. And Chris will talk a little bit more about that later on. The other thing that comes out of it is a refreshment of our strategy, our collaboration, our ambition together. And this is really, we'll get to later on today, just to get a sense of what we are starting to agree, what we've agreed on, and where future work needs more attention. Then we very quickly moved into Inequality Day. That sense that this is the new horizon of priority for the GEC. We've agreed that in various meetings, and how do we actually tackle it? How do we tackle inequality? This transition is starting to happen from a green perspective, but is it starting to happen from a fairness perspective? Let's make sure we are focusing on that. And we talked about social contract. We talked about processes of participatory processes, societal processes. And it was such a resonant point of view that we also saw in that day one that policymakers aren't doing enough. We also saw that in day 4. But leadership, there's a new sort of leadership that needs to emerge. A leadership of communities, a leadership of us, leadership of our movements and our partners. It needs to fill the void sometimes of the lack of political leadership. So how do we make that leadership come alive, and how do we address structural inequalities in this transition? And very grateful for the work we did together on social contract and on inclusive processes. We then moved to Nature Day, and we know that in the green recovery and in all arguments and discussions on economics, nature is largely missing. And we cannot take our eye off that feeling of the economic system. A nature positive economy is a useful frame that's emerged in this last year. How do we catalyze it? How do we make sure that we are part of that solution and using our networks to progress that agenda and not allowing it to be ignored as it usually is, particularly even in the COVID recovery moment, you see that nature is largely ignored. For any of you that were attending yesterday's debate session, gosh, there was some energy there, wasn't there? And the intergenerational conversation between experts and youth, and probably many of your highlights of the week, but certainly it also helped us focus in on that sense of intergenerational conversation, the challenge of sending a very clear message of what we need to do as well as everyone else needs to do, in particular the policymakers. So now we're today and on Friday, and we're talking about the strategy, we're talking about the GEC, the structure, and as I said right up front, really more on the most important days, and sometimes maybe we should do it first before we get to Friday, we're all running out of energy. That underpinning all of this success is our network, our relationships, our commitment to collaboration, and making it easy for you to collaborate as our role in the secretariat here, but also our hubs, and making it easy to collaborate, because collaboration is difficult. Collaboration requires commitment and energy and empathy and understanding, and it is a difficult process, and we need to make it as simple as possible. So today we're focusing on how do we collaborate for more impact, how we take forward this agenda that we've discussed over this week and take it forward with commitment, energy, and renewed impact. So with that, I would like to just a little bit focus on who's in the room and make sure that you're all aware of each other. So Ben, you can close that slide down and I can try and have a look at gallery view if I can, so that I can make sure that I'm aware who's in the room. You are encouraged now today, if you can, to turn on your videos and let people see your faces. And we can hopefully see some of our long-term friends and our new friends. So anybody that's got a big GEC brand up there, you'll see that we're the Global Secretariat, UK, very much on brand. So hopefully you've met us across the week, but I'll just do a quick run through so that you know who people are. Stuart, our countries, Emily, our engagements, Najma, our policy, Chris, our policy, Ben, our communications, Monica, our operations, Mia's somewhere, and I can't find her at the moment. There's a brand, yeah, Mia on our operations as well. So that's us, the Global Secretariat, and at your service is our mantra. Facilitating this collaboration and making sure that we are doing our best, because you're the heroes, you're the ones on the front line. We're back in safe place. You're on the front line. So our job is to serve you, and that's what we're trying to do. And so we're always keen for you to reach out and know who we are and ask us to do more for you. And we had a lovely preparatory session with our hub partners. Back to gallery view. I don't know why that's where that's disappeared off me. A few of our hubs, if I may just go around the room. So there's Zinat from India. It's been on the steering group for a long time as well. So Zinat, we have Nicole from Caribbean. We have Luis from Peru. I'm looking down, Subzita. Marisol from Brazil, one of our newest hubs. Marisol, great to see you. Dennis, I know you work with Nicole in the Caribbean. Lovely to see you. Udonchimeg from Mongolia, and I'm going to Gaylor from South Africa. I'm seeing you now. I'm seeing all those faces. I'm trying my best so that Barbara's there, but she's not got a camera on. Leslie's there, but it's still only about 6 a.m. for her in Peru. So I'm happy that she doesn't want to turn the camera on. She's probably still eating a toast. But look, and then there's a few other of our key partners that we partner with on some of our policy programs. I see Martin's there from the Capitals Coalition. I can't see anyway, and I think there's also a few steering group members here, which you should always know who's behind the scenes telling me what to do, apart from you all. And that's Steve Bass is there. We've got Aline from the European Commission's there. Yeah, it's like a family wedding, isn't it? Where's the mad uncle? But it's and we've also got we've got Clara there as well from the from the UN. So look, we had some lovely conversations. This is effectively a family of collaborators on a subject which a few years ago was a bit random and strange, and now we've made it a thing. We've made green economy a thing, and we've made it explicitly inclusive green economy. That's one of our achievements. We've made it exclusively to incorporate, let's not forget the green, the nature. We've made it about nature improvement as well. There's some of the impacts that we've made. We've also made it about locally defined green economies through our hubs. It's not just one idea, it's many ideas that come forward, contextual to the social and environmental conditions of those countries. So that's what we have done together, ladies and gentlemen. And now we need to make sure that it is fair, and we're leaning into that agenda, and social contract is our avenue for that. I don't know whether I've really missed anybody that I should have introduced, but there are the rest of you. If I don't know you, then I'm hoping that you are people that are thinking about joining the coalition. And I won't put the spotlight on you because you're new to the group, but we very much hope that you're here to explore collaboration and to extend our family, and to in recognition that leadership is you, not us. So I think with that, I just wanted to say a very, very warm welcome to this discussion, a very warm welcome for you, particular gold marks for turning up on a Friday lunchtime when it's been a long, hard week. And Nicole, you've been at almost every session. So from my eyesight, I think probably you should take a gold badge for being at almost every session. But also introduce Dennis Mitchell from the MNSC's expert, member of our Caribbean. Thank you, Dennis. Absolutely very welcome. Please put other intros that I've missed in there. Or in fact, rather than it one to many, why don't we introduce ourselves in the chat? If I've missed you, please say hello. Please say hello to everyone in this coalition so that we can make sure that this is a family of green economy leaders from around the world. And we are growing stronger together. Okay, it's a very, very warm welcome. I'd like to just, if I may, bring in Clara Axted from the UN Environment Programme and Paige as a representative of the steering group. And Clara.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Oliver. It's a great pleasure to be here from the steering group of the Green Economy Coalition. And on behalf of the Partnership for Action on Green Economy, PAGE. First of all, I would like to really thank the Green Economy Coalition Secretariat and all the members that are here today for an incredibly rich, in a very non-materialistic way, week of really pure inspiration. I've been in most of the sessions, starting from the very loud alarm bell that rang on Monday to the sessions on inclusion, on nature, on sustainable storytelling, on green recovery. And I think it's very clear that we have the solutions for producing, creating, and living more sustainably, and that the way to get there is together. So really, it's a great pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Clara Axblad. I'm based at the Secretariat of the Partnership for Action on Green Economy. That's in Geneva. So more or less same time zone. I think a special thank you to those who are joining from quite early in the morning or quite late in the evening. So PAGE is an interagency collaboration of 5 UN agencies. It's UNEP, it's ILO, it's UNDP, UNIDO, and UNITAR. A few of these agencies are also part of the steering group of the GEC, together with several other organizations, institutions, and individuals that are thinking, leading, and acting for the green and inclusive agenda. So the role of the steering committee is to decide on strategic and management issues for the coalition and reports directly to you, the members of the coalition and the friends as well. And I think this week has been an immense inspiration and motivation for the work of the steering group. For a partnership like PAGE that focuses on creating an enabling environment and incentives for the transition to a green and inclusive economy through a focus on macroeconomic policy, partnering with a network like the Green Economy Coalition and its members is really a key way of making sure that these policies are wanted, needed, and demanded by citizens around the world. And I think if there's one loud key message that has been ringing throughout this week, it is that the economic recovery from COVID is really the greatest and maybe also the last opportunity that we have to reset our communities, economies, and societies in a way that we can create growing inclusion, growing natural diversity, and growing prosperity for all instead of growing capital for a few and growing existential risk to all. So I'd like to round up now, Oliver, but one other key message that I've heard really clearly is that to do this, we need to work together. We need to bring people to the center, and these people need to bring nature to the table. This is something I heard in one of the breakout groups that I was in that really stuck with me. And I think that in this week so far, that's what the Green Economy Coalition has been able to do, bring people at the center and nature to the table. So it's a great pleasure again to be here. I look forward to helping you through the session, Oliver, to co-chair and to welcome potentially interested new members and being part of the breakout groups as well. So it's back over to you, Oliver. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clara. And ladies and gentlemen, the governance of the GEC is as open as we can possibly make it. So the steering group meets every 2 months. The minutes are posted on our website. You just have to go to governance and have a look through there, and you can see all the conversations we have. And largely, they're all about how do we do more together? What are the moments coming up? Where are we money from. So all those conversations are there for you to interrogate or just ask me, and I shall make, or Ben, and we shall make sure you have it. Okay, let's move on to the first session, the first sort of download. Let's just check in with each other about what we've heard this week. Clara started that conversation, but I pass it to Emily now to lead us on a recap of the weekend.
So I'm not going to recap everything that we've learned, but I'm just going to pick out some of the highlights, as Oliver has already started on our journey. But as I do that, I guess what I think would be great is I'm going to ask you to have a think about the last week. I realized that not everyone has attended all sessions or just dipped in and out. But I'd ask you to have a think about what has worked for you and what has not worked for you, and what would you like to take forward, and what do we drop? Now that can be content-wise, or it can be process. Yeah. So we've tried our our first big global meeting online. I think some things worked well, some things less well. I'd be really interested to know what it was like for you guys. I don't think we've quite got time in the agenda, Oliver, to sort of come round to everybody. So my suggestion is to have a think about it, either to bring it to the carousels that we're going to start after this, or if you want to, you could just pop it in the chat. Your highs and your lows. We've had a whole week, as Oliver said. We kicked off with the emergency. We heard very much that COP wasn't what we needed it to be. There were a few small steps taken, but it didn't deliver the kind of economic change we needed. And the conversation of economic reform wasn't really being had at COP. So we also heard that the recovery agenda, as we keep calling it, doesn't really exist in loads of countries. Recovery is a concept that seems to be dominated a lot by more northern countries. So how do we make this a global recovery rather than a northern recovery? We heard that activism, just as business as usual, needs to change. Activism as usual needs to change. We as activists, as advocates, as researchers, as conveners, need to use different methodologies and different ways of approaching this thing, given the scale and the urgency of what we're facing. We heard that the space for dialogue and convening is shrinking, or it's difficult right now. It's difficult to find the money and the political space to come together. So our whole mode of operation, of participatory decision making, is very difficult to do at the moment, partly because of the COVID crisis, partly because budgets are constrained, partly because it's very difficult to convince people in a time of crisis that really what needs to happen is that the processes need to open up, let more people look to the table. We heard that there are many glimpses or many interventions where the social contract is being renegotiated in different ways, legally, socially, financially. How can we, as a global coalition, ensure that those spaces are that we bring our elbows out and make those stronger and bigger and more powerful? On Nature Day, and again, I'm not recapping everything that we've learned because it's too much. But on Nature Day, we looked at the different mechanisms by which nature and natural capital are or are not being integrated into our processes. And I think a few highlights for me came across. The first is that despite the increase in natural capital accounting, and methodologies, the data and the evidence that is being generated by those natural capital processes is not still being used by policymakers and decision makers more generally. So there is a data to decision making gap that needs to be filled. We also heard that natural capital and nature are not being integrated in the recovery agenda, as in some cases at all, in other cases a little, but biodiversity remains the fringe of the recovery agenda. And we also heard the importance of civil society civil society role in driving more accountable natural capital processes, ones that deliver benefits for people on the ground, rather than just it going towards big nature projects or big low carbon projects that don't benefit lives and livelihoods. During the green recovery on trial, we trialed a trial. We tried a different format, and we wanted to see whether we could put the recovery agenda on the stand and see whether it was making sense. And it received a D, not only from our youth jury, but from our global audiences as well. It was insufficient. The green recovery agenda is insufficient and inadequate. It is not generating the kinds of economic transformations that we need. I'm going to stop because I don't want to try and recount all the nuggets that have been heard. What we've been trying to do, or not we, Chris, in an act of absolute brilliance, has been trying to draw from the week what we've heard into the declaration. Chris, would it be worth just trying to well, we should put the link to the declaration into the chat box, and it's also in your link pack that should already be in the chat box. But there, I think you can see quite a good overview of what we've heard so far.
Okay. Thank you, Emily.
I'll stop there.
The difficulty is, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know how much of this you've been to and how much you've is boring you because you've seen it all, or is entirely new to you because you didn't. And so that's just a snapshot summary. We will produce a summary of the event for you, and I think that the declaration is actually the statement of we've co-created. So it is there. We do capture any comments you have on that, but the breakout groups is when we're really going to deep dive on some of the lessons and questions about what we do and where we're going next. I would just like to, because many of you are new or relatively new, just kind of refresh a little bit on what is our strategy, because we are 10 years old and this is a collaborative strategy that we have co-created over a period of time. And these global meetings are there to refresh and rejuvenate and also improve the strategy. So Ben, if I could ask you to put up the slide one of our strategy, and I will just remind everybody that, yeah, there we go. Okay, so look, one of the really important things with our strategy, and one of the things I've noticed over the years when new people come, is that we think, okay, we've already worked out where we are, where we must go and how we're going to get there. But when new people come in, it is important to refresh the critique. I think that looking back on coalitions, anybody wants to run coalitions, the idea that we have a shared critique is also really, really significant. And we can't underestimate the fact that we have a critique that the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, and the inequality crisis are all symptoms of the way we run our economies. They are choices that our economics have either made or it's not made because it has grown too big for its ecological context, and now these are consequences. So the solution from that critique is it flows from that central analysis of outdated metrics, blinkered by short-termism, encouraging overconsumption, trickle-down fallacy, blind to the dependency on nature, and eroding social trust and contract. So that critique is really, really central as a uniting force across our coalition. And, you know, so many different organizations represented in this coalition from lots of different people, lots of different organizations. You know, if you're working on the poverty and inequality crisis, why would you be interested in climate change? You know, that intersectionality, the center of our intersectionality is we look at our economies. And we look at our economies both in the causes they have, but also, therefore, the solutions. So we also then start to create a vision of what does our future look like. And really that vision is also central to hold us together. And it has been a long time in creation, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, principles there, 2011 that started, a set of shared principles. And I draw your attention to that and have a look at well-being, at justice, at environmental limits, on sufficiency and on good governance. You know, they are all there, those shared principles that underpin the way we think about this change. But then one of the questions we're constantly asking, what is a green and fair economy? Or what is a sustainable development economy? And why is this different to a well-being economy? Look, we don't necessarily need to worry about the title. We need to worry about what's in the change. And we have defined it with these 5 themes, new policies, an economy that respects and understands its dependency on nature right at the base, an economy that builds well-being, reduces poverty, reduces inequality right in the center of that red ring, an economy that really thinks about the sectoral and system solutions, new food, housing, transport, energy, the rights across those, who benefits, who's involved, are SMEs involved, is informality considered in all of those solutions for our normal economic processes. And then where does the money come from? That's the blue strip. Where does the money come from? Taxes, subsidies, public investment, private investment. How are we leveraging that money in? How is it avoiding brown economy and moving into fair and green? And then ultimately that green box at the top, the governance of this, the metrics of this, how we measure an economy so that we understand if it's delivering on well-being, if it's delivering on nature, and it is an inclusive participatory process where all voices are heard. So that's our policy, and that actually is now captured in a tracker. We track 20 policies that cover that spectrum, and we look at how governments are doing. And that was a piece of work that started, well, basically 2011, really, but was effectively delivered in 2010. Chris, I don't know when it finally came online, but it's almost a decade's worth of work to get to that point, and from consultations across the piece. So then how do we get there? And I'll come back to these how do we get there? How do we work? What is our strategy? Chris, I'd like the next slide because I think they're better at that, demonstrating that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a theory of change. And our theory of change has really got this idea that has been picked up through the week. We can't just rely on governments, businesses, and other institutions. We need to build societal demand for this green economy. They must be demanding it, not just saying no to climate change, but yes to a green economy, a green and fair economy. Mobilizing, and that's why our hub work is so important. The point about leadership, who are the leaders of the green economy? Are they governments or are they us? It's us. It's the communities that we are helping to engage with this, building that societal demand, building those new leaders. Dialogues is central to that. But we also need to shift the policy supply, shift the innovative, transformative policies, make sure that they are not fringe policies. If you're talking about adopting natural capital, it's not a fringe policy, it's a central policy, it's a central, sensible policy. And so really shifting that policy supply. So when this magic happens, I think that in our minds, it's the idea of our tracker meets the community and mobilized community, and you get that sense of the agenda as defined by tracker, but the people that are local and empowered in their own communities. So, and that's what shifts governments, that we become an irresistible force. That's our theory of change, and that also has been created together. Next slide, Ben. So how do we go about it? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is ultimately a culture change. Underpins, we have a saying in the GEC, culture eats policy for breakfast. Culture is what changes things ultimately, and that's about stories and people and leadership, saying it's no longer acceptable to subsidize fossil fuels more at all, and certainly not more than we're doing on renewables or on renewable energy or agriculture or transport solutions. Absolutely telling the story, building that community of people that are telling this story as there is hope, there is change, there is possible. Then influencing the policies we talked about, the tracker, making sure that our policies are not fringe but are central, sharpening those policies, getting them more connected. It's not one policy, it's an integrated systemic intervention across all of the 5 areas that we've been describing. Dialogue is our central piece about bringing people together. We don't want to demonize people. We want to bring people together into a conversation where we all recognize we have all mutual interests and understanding, and particularly those people that are underrepresented. This economy is at risk of becoming a 1%, 99% green economy unless we make sure we are including those people that have been excluded and addressing structural inequalities. But then underpinning all of those 3 things is today's meeting, the coalition, this network and infrastructure of our members, our partners, our leaders, our champions, learning together, expanding that dialogue, expanding those policies, influencing those policies, and telling these stories. It is us today that we're talking about the 4th box, the coalition building. And you are the coalition, you are here, and we're talking about that today. So with that, I think that I'll probably go back to the first slide then, which is what we're going to do today, the agenda of the day. And just say, look, I'm already 4 minutes late. That's enough talking for you. Hopefully that's got you back in the zone of who we are and what we do and why we do it. And you're very warm welcome, and thank you for that. So let's now think about how we're going to improve on this. And I'm going to invite you to go to make a choice on the different carousels. If you're a new member or thinking about new member, please join in the first round, the new member group. That will be a breakout that you can choose. If you're the advocacy and story people, you like that, then go to that. Policy, go to that. Structure and governance, money, go to the hubs one. You will get another round, so you will be able to join one of the other carousels next time round. So you know that will come, but it's 25 minutes, or I might make it 22 and a half. And the breakout groups should be coming on your screen now. Have a good conversation. Each one of those sessions will be hosted, and each one of those sessions will feedback. So thank you for your patience with our intro. And let's now hear your voices for the next hour. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good session. Yeah, it takes about 5 minutes to warm up these sessions. Then all of a sudden, it really starts to pick up pace, and then we're just getting in our conversations going, and we have to come back. So, look, you've got another round now. Ben, Clara, you were meeting some potential new members. Are you encouraging them to go and see some other meetings?
Absolutely, yes. No, I gave a presentation that probably went on a bit too long, and we were just getting into the questions when the breakout rooms stopped. So I'm going to answer a few extra questions in the chat. But yes, new members, it was lovely to meet you, and please go to some of the other sessions to learn more about our work.
Okay, and thank you for being there, Clara, as well. Policy team, you have a good meeting in policy, and you want to invite another round of people?
Absolutely. We had a great meeting going. If people want to come back and continue that conversation, please do, but we'd love some new voices as well.
Okay. Stuart, I don't think I did a good enough job of promoting your meeting, your meeting. It's all about the money. Where's the money coming from for collaboration, and how do we govern this structure to grow? So if you're interested in that, Stuart, we were just getting going. We were all touching on the really important points about branding and identity just then, and it was really central to the conversation. So, Stuart, people will come to your session about identity, governance, structure, and money, which I know that's always a challenge for all of us. So we'll do that next, won't we, Stuart? Emily, you run the comms meeting.
Yeah, and we didn't get enough time at all. In fact, I was just babbling on. So no, we went through some of our key storylines, and I'd love to take 3 hours for everyone to feedback, but I realize we don't have the time. But no, we're just looking at how we sell this story of transition, and some of our different storylines that we use in order to sell that transition in a way that holds us all together as one alliance.
Okay, so
can I just say, Oliver, just on the group for governance and funding, the Jamboard remains open. There's a link in there, and you can, after the conversation is closed, go back to the Jamboard, keep on graffitiing away, and we will document that later. So don't be limited to the time we've got.
Thank you, Stuart. Okay, so you've got one more round to go and visit. If you want to talk about stories, you want to find out where to get the money for this work, if you want to discuss where our policy agenda is going, you've got one more round. They're your 3 options this time. So the breakout groups should come. You should make your choice. I do recommend that you go and see another session. Don't necessarily repeat the group. Go and see another part of the organization and put your thoughts into there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, last session, and then we're on to closing and baskets and all sorts of fun things. So please keep your energy levels high. Let's get one last conversation. We're back. Thank you very much, everybody. We're in the final session now. We're just going to go around the room a little bit. And look, I know feedbacks can be challenging, but we've already warmed up our facilitators for the group. So you can largely sit back now with your feet up. Your work is done. The GEC Secretariat still has got another round to do just to feedback that conversation. So let's start, Ben, with the new members. How was that, and what sort of questions came through, and where did we get to with that conversation?
Yeah, it was great. Like I say, the challenge I had was introducing the breadth of our portfolio, given that we work in so many different countries, so many different partners, a really diverse membership, a huge range of activities. So I think, if anything, I probably ended up speaking for a bit too long, and my presentation sort of overran and ate into the time that we had for questions from new members, which was a bit of a shame. But we did have a couple, mainly about membership, mainly about the process of membership, and I spoke a bit about that. And yeah, I think we had some interest there. Yes, I thank you for the reminder. I will have links to share in the chat. I'm just pulling those together right now. And yeah, like I say, if anyone has any more questions about membership, any more information they want, visit our website. There's a members page on there, or you can email me. My email is just ben.martin@greeneconomycoalition.org. So if you have any questions or you're interested in becoming a member, do let me know. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Very interesting. That point comes up about our breadth a lot. Look, we got challenged on that question all the time in the early days. And just remember that the coalition is about doing things that are bigger than any individual organization can do on their own. That's the idea. So breadth is not only a consequence, but also hopefully a virtue, because it was also about connecting so many different activities. If you work on finance, you work on governance, you work on, these things are all central to this. So building that breadth and landscape has been one of our unique contributing values. But it is hard to pitch it and describe it all very quickly. Thank you for that, Ben. Okay, so let's go to Stuart, shall we? Stuart, if we don't have any money, we can't do any work. We'll do a bit on voluntary, but if we don't have any money, we don't have any structures, we don't have a support structure, we won't succeed. So in many ways, your meeting is life critical. Tell us how it went.
The power is local. It's very clear within across the network. Our power is local, and we need to build much more strongly on local brands and local action. So there's a strong sense that the nexus of power, the nexus of resource raising needs to be more local. South Africa, for example, points that there's absolutely no issue about creating much money. They're swimming in money. They've got far too much money. They don't know what to do with it. However, you get to India, which says, but wait a minute, it's against the law for us to raise money in India to do certain things, like social mobilization, and we have to rephrase everything, which raises the question then within the structure, how would we transfer? How would we transfer slush pots of money in South Africa to deficits in places where it becomes our work is actually frowned upon because it challenges power? GEC needs to have a much stronger local legal basis, and the idea was also put up that we might want to consider offering services to social movements. Other social movements are already doing the social activism around the place, and there's a whole load of stuff that they do, and they get their own resources. We may do well by trying to offer bespoke services, which could be some kind of fee for service basis, on doing that. And then there was one final very bold suggestion which came in, which said, go to the source, go to the IMF, and get the money out of Washington. They will give it to you if you know how to pitch for it. So there was a range of different perspectives: strong local, be bold, go global, go to the source, and transfer between countries. We are a network after all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. When we set up the coalition, it was always that sense that the difficult balance between global and national. But one thing we've always kept consistent is if most economic policy happens at a national level. And in order to engage with that conversation, you need to be nationally based. And you need to have national credibility and national convening credibility. So central to our success has been our hub partners who retain their own identity and use GEC when it's appropriate to them, but only when it's appropriate to them, not enforced. So that's something that structure has kept us going. We need to grow more hubs, and we've got a new one in Brazil, and we've got a new one in East Africa. So more expansion, but more collaboration, more learning across the piece, and structures that support that. And funding, well, I'm glad to know that South Africa is not short of cash. That's good news. The rest of the world, less so. So we should all be knocking on Gaylord's door. Anyway, thank you very much for that, Stuart. Let's go to Chris, shall we, from the policy conversations.
Thanks, Oliver. We had a really, really rich policy conversation. I'm not going to be able to do it justice, so I'm just going to pick up a few things. But broadly, we were looking at what policy trends are gaining momentum, which ones were losing momentum, and what we should be doing about it as a coalition. So a couple of insights. Gaining momentum, just transition. We know we're about to embark on this new moment with social contract in the GEC, lots and lots of energy around just transition in the green economy space, gaining momentum everywhere. People want to see what a fair recovery looks like. So we're going to have to be picking up on that as we go forward. But what's losing momentum is multilateralism. We haven't got the collaboration at international level that we had. We need to be thinking about how we can build coalitions in new places around new issues as a GEC. How can we build smaller alliances, the kinds that we see at COP around powering past coal, all that kind of stuff? How can we build those little alliances around the issues that we care about? And then we were thinking a little bit maybe around what can we do as a coalition? What can we do as members? We all got lots of energy, I think yesterday, if people were here for the trial, from our youth witnesses and from our youth jurors. We want to think about how we could bring in youth ambassadors to the Green Economy Coalition, but do it in the right way. Lots of youth ambassadors around the world. How can we make them involved in policy? How can we make sure they're not just a sticker that we're putting or a new thing that we're bringing in to make it feel a bit more interesting? How can we really authentically involve them in the process? And I think that's something that we really want to do through the social contract work. There was lots more policy conversation beside that. I had to put a new jam board midway through to make space for the post-its, but that's just a little taste of our conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So let's go to Emily. Story.
Thanks, Oliver. Yeah. So we touched on our strategy as far as the communications for the Green Economy Coalition is to make the transition to inclusive green economies feel irresistible, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, whether it's from both business and finance or SMEs or community or indigenous groups, etc., this transition needs to feel irresistible. You can't not do it. We talked about, though, the challenges that it is that are embedded in today's cultural setup. So the fact that so much of mainstream media is curated down according to our own cliques and our own ways of behaving, and therefore it's actually quite difficult for people to get out of what they're being targeted at. We talked about how social media in particular has become sort of co-opted, and Hazel reflected that she's written a blog recently on how we can take on the giants of social media. And we also talked about the challenge of the fact that many many of those who we need to convince require arguments that aren't always easy to communicate. So how do you take on not the people who are already close to this agenda, but the economic decision makers, and how do you make the case that investing in green SMEs is the smart choice? And to that, we talked about the role of trusted voices and spokespeople and champions who are the carriers of story and messaging. So in response to some of those challenges, we started to talk around how you hack culture, really. What are the strategies for hacking culture in a very complex multimedia sort of setting? And I mentioned that we're starting to hopefully work with Culture Hack. One organization. Also, our work on Stories for Life is about bringing together different communicators, advertisers, marketing agencies, broadcasters, journalists, storytellers from lots of different disciplines around a shared way of thinking about the stories that motivate us and the stories that deter us from taking action. I think I'll stop there. I think there was just a strong sense that how we tell stories matters, and in fact, we all have a role as storytellers, right down to the individual level and right down to the micro. That micro stories are units of narrative, and if we can use our power as individual storytellers that show that we are nature and that we are all connected, then we actually have the ability to shift narrative. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so some really important things, some important structural pieces about we are global, but we are principally national, and how we connect that, and how we fund that, and how we learn and collaborate and impact across that. Some really important work on just transition, social contract, some really important thinking on our policy work that brings that alive, and our communications work that brings that alive. And of course, it's got to be an irresistible story. What an important point to make. It's got to be an irresistible story. Irresistible in that it can't be stopped, and irresistible in that it's also very exciting and interesting and innovative and creative and hopeful. So beautiful stuff, fantastic. We know. Let's move now to just the final closing. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting over this last week, it does two things. Firstly, it really galvanizes the relationships that underpin our work collaboration. Hopefully, you know people a little better than you did when you started out on this week, even people that you've known for a while. Hopefully, we've shared some values and we've shared some visions and some hope, and also some practical collaborations. And just from today, look, structure is emerging here. We want to have a policy group. We want to have a comms group. We want to have a structure and finance governance group. That's kind of what we were practicing today. We want that to exist, and we want it to follow up on the work that we've started. And we want to make sure that you feel that you have an invitation to collaborate on that. But we also need all those thematic work, our hubs and our our social contract and our finance work and our SME work, all of that. And actually, if you've got a cluster that you want to create, I mean, Nicole's repeated to me about the blue economy and SIDS, and I feel really bad because I've not got any other SID countries in there, and I need to go and find some for Nicole. So Nicole's not sitting on her own in the Caribbean without partners, you know. So we do respond to the cluster idea that you can self-cluster, or you can invite others in to cluster with you, and we will try and support that as much as we can. So those clusterings around work. So we meet together, we work out what our work is. So what we do is now we take away all these Jamboards, all these conversations, and we look at our strategy. We produce a very short document that says, how does our strategy improve? What decisions have we made this week? Where we've made decisions that green recovery or COVID recovery is still a critical thing we need to lean into. We knew that before. We had a mandate from that this week. We know that we've got to lean in on social contract and just transition, and making sure this is a participatory transition where we're not just accepting an agenda, we're setting the agenda. We're setting the agenda of the parameters of this transition. And that was a very clear message. We know that we've got to keep a focus on nature, because nature will always be last to the table, lost from the table, unless we make it stay at the table. And a nature positive economy absolutely mandate for us to take forward that work. Further expansion of our hubs, further expansion of our collaboration, and some underpinning infrastructure that supports us to move from project funding to being a network where we are pooling our resources more effectively and pooling our advocacy and keeping our stories. Our stories this is ultimately about culture change, an irresistible story of this transition. And we are the champions and the leaders, and we're not waiting. We're going to get on with it, and we're going to invite more and more people on board and make that relationship as rich and rewarding as possible, and and if you know, take the energy, do not make it too transaction heavy. So look, that's what we've done. We have also got the second piece is we have a declaration. The decision from the declaration work, we've got largely the content has been extracted from the meetings. We had a conversation yesterday with those that joined us. The declaration is now in a reasonable shape, a little bit of polish. I think that our expert comms people need to give it a little bit of polish so it sounds a bit more attractive. But what we'd like, the other decision was we'd like to come back to you, and so we'd like to record it as a talking heads, so that you each say a line, and it feels like it's the voices from around the world standing together with a clear statement. You know, you don't have to have organizational branding. The branding will be, you know, the idea of the coalition was that we would, in the coalition space, we could say things that maybe we wouldn't be able to say in our individual organizations. So we put it under the GEC brand, and but we would like you to be encouraged to offer yourself up to be a talking head to one or two of the lines from the declaration, so that we can create this wonderful pastiche of, but there's probably a better word, Emily, of our collective voices, and it will sound powerful and significant, and we shall use it. We shall use it also because we're reminded that next year is Stockholm plus 50. You know, we had our big intervention moment, our birth moment really was Rio plus 20. Now Stockholm plus 50. And Stockholm plus 50 is a moment when the whole world will reflect on nature, but it will also reflect on COVID recovery. So we are well positioned to continue our work on COVID recovery, amplify it, do it at national levels and global levels, and make sure that we are standing together firmly into that space. And we do have connections into that event, and we shall explore with you whether or not, I don't think we could plan another global meeting right at this precise moment, but certainly something smaller, coalition around Stockholm plus 50 seems to be a logical next step for us to lean in. I'd just like to, if I can, if Clara's still on the table, still around, I think she had to leave pretty quickly. Are you still here, Clara?
I'm here.
Yeah. Could we put the spotlight on Clara? She could just say thanks on behalf of the steering group to everybody.
It would be great if there's a way that I don't have to see my face in the spotlight. I prefer to see you guys. Anyway, Oliver, colleagues, partners, members, friends, thank you so much to the Secretariat team, to the other steering group members that are here, and first and foremost to the members and the guests and the interested members that have joined. It's been a great week. It's been a great day. I have had the chance to listen a lot, to learn a lot, and I really look forward to the declaration that we can then share with colleagues and partner organizations in the UN system to bring these key messages and voices to their attention, and consequentially to the attention of the governments that we work with. If I can just leave with one wish for the members and everyone who's here, that would be that we can use this holiday season that is ahead of us to bring this conversation also to those that might not be as informed or even as interested, because I think we are here in a safe space. We are quite a lot in agreement, although we might have different opinions on what's most important, but we agree on the overall goal. But there are many out there that might have different perspectives, different priorities, and I think it's really important to also listen to these cohabitants of this planet, and to understand the motivations and fears and curiosities as well, so that we can bring this dialogue and make it truly inclusive. So thank you so much again to the team and to everyone. And back over to you, Oliver, for the final wrap up.
Thank you very much. I do have to give my own personal thanks to the secretariat team. I've given them the day off. We're giving them the day off next week. They've been working really long hours to pull these things together. So it is really hard work, but it is worth it. We get such a buzz when you bring all of you together. So thanks to you as well. It's been an extraordinary week, and we would not be here without you. You are the reasons, and you are the impact, and you are the change. So we have to support you, and we have to continue to challenge ourselves to do that better and better. There was a ritual that was created by our friend Nicole in our Caribbean global meeting, where she created a basket, and she asked us all to write a little piece of paper and to put our hopes and dreams into the basket. And it was passed to our South African colleagues because they were hosting our next global meeting. And then it was added to, and it was passed to our Indian colleagues, and then it was passed back to us. And I believe Stuart has retrieved it from the velvet cushion upon which it sits for the year. Stuart, have you got it? Can you wave it in the air? There it is. So this basket still exists. It's been all around the world. Unfortunately, we can't ask you to put your hopes and dreams directly in the basket, but maybe you could just put them in the chat, and maybe it's just a little hope and dream for next time. And I hope that if we can, we'll meet in person in Stockholm next year. But with Stuart holding our hopes and dreams in the Trinidad basket made by Indigenous people in Dominica. Thank you, Nicole. But that basket has traveled all around the world, and we hope that is a symbol of our shared collaboration, strong hopes together. Ladies and gentlemen, I love it when we finish on time. That's what the GEC is about. We're effective. We get through an extraordinary agenda, and we are 1 minute before the time, which is just enough for us to give us all a round of applause and say thank you very much indeed. Auf Wiedersehen. I don't know all those goodbyes. Arrivederci. Ciao. Ci vediamo la prossima volta. Tutti questi langui. Okay, all of those. Anybody else got anything else they want to chuck in? But there we go. There's a few chows and thank yous. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend the week with you. And we will see you soon. Keep an eye out for your request to be a star on the declaration. Please record a line for us, and we shall make it a general statement for the world to know we are here. Well done, team. Well done, everybody. And also to Laura in the background, who's made the technology work. Thank you, Laura. Auf Wiedersehen to all our speakers. Now we'd go for a drink, but we can't do that. So au revoir.